Book 8, The Scouring of the Horse. In the years of the peace of Wessex, when the good king sat at home, years following on that bloody boon, when she that stands above the moon stood above death at Ethandune, and saw his kingdom come. When the pagan people of the sea fled to their palisades, nailed there with javelins to cling, and wonder smote the pirate king, and brought him to his christening and the end of all his raids. And there came to his chrism loosing lords of all lands afar, and a line was drawn northwesterly that set King Egbert's empire free, giving all lands by the northern sea to the sons of the northern star. In the days of the rest of Alfred, when all these things were done, and Wessex lay in a patch of peace, like a dog in a patch of sun, the king sat in his orchard among apples green and red, with the little book in his bosom and the sunshine on his head. And he gat good laws of the ancient kings, like treasure out of the tombs. And many a thief in thorny nook, or noble in sea-stained turret, shook for the opening of his iron book and the gathering of the dooms. Then men would come from the ends of the earth, whom the king sat welcoming, and men would go to the ends of the earth because of the word of the king. And men, seeing such embassies, spake with the king and said, the steel that sang so sweet a tune on Ashdown and on Ethandune, why hangs it scabbarded so soon, all heavily like lead? Why dwell the Danes in North England, up to the river Ride? 3 more such marches like thine own would end them, and the Pict should own our sway, and our feet climb the throne in the mountains of Strathclyde. And Alfred in the orchard, among apples green and red, with the little book in his bosom, looked at green leaves and said, when all philosophies shall fail, this word alone shall fit, that a sage feels too small for life, and a fool too large for it. Asia and all imperial plains are too little for a fool. But for one man whose eyes can see, the little island of Athelney is too large a land to rule. Haply it had been better when I built my fortress there, out in the reedy waters wide. I had stood on my mud wall and cried, take England all from tide to tide, be Athelney my share. Those madmen of the throne scramble, oppressors and oppressed, had lined the banks of Athelney, and waved and wailed unceasingly where the river turned to the broad sea by an island of the blessed. An island like a little book full of 100 tales, like the gilt page the good monk's pen, that is all smaller than a wren, yet hath high towns, meteors and men, and suns and spouting whales. A land having a light on it, in the river dark and fast, an isle with utter clearness lit, because a saint had stood in it. Where flowers are flowers indeed and fit, and trees are trees at last. So were the island of a saint, but I am a common king, and I will make my fences tough from Wantage town to Plymouth Bluff, because I am not wise enough to rule so small a thing. And it fell in the days of Alfred, in the days of his repose, that as old customs in his sight were a straight road and a steady light, he bade them keep the white horse white as the first plume of the snows, and right to the red torchlight from the trouble of morning grey they stripped the white horse of the grass, as they strip it to this day. And under the red torchlight he went dreaming as though dull of his old companions, slain like kings, and the rich irrevocable things of a heart that hath not openings, but is shut fast, being full. And the torchlight touched the pale hair, where silver clouded gold, and the frame of his face was made of cords. And a young lord turned among the lords and said, "The king is old." And even as he said it, a post ran in amain, crying, "Arm, Lord King, the Hamlet's arm! In the horror and the shade of harm, they have burnt brand of Ainger's farm. The Danes are come again." Danes drive the white east angles in 6 flights on the plains. Danes waste the world about the Thames. Danes to the eastward, Danes. And as he stumbled on one knee, the thanes broke out in ire, crying, "Ill the watchmen watch, and ill the sheriffs keep the shire." But the young earl said, "Ill the saints of England, guard the land wherein we pledge them gold. The dykes decay, the king grows old, and surely this is hard, that we be never quit of them, that when his head is hoar, he cannot say to them he smote, and spared with a hard hand at the throat, go and return no more." Then Alfred smiled, and the smile of him was like the sun for power. But he only pointed bade them heed, those peasants of the Berkshire breed, who plucked the old horse of the weed, as they pluck it to this hour. Will ye part with the weeds forever, or show daisies to the door? Or will you bid the bold grass go and return no more? So ceaseless and so secret thrive terror and theft set free. Treason and shame shall come to pass, while one weed flowers in a morass. And like the stillness of stiff grass, the stillness of tyranny. Over our white souls also wild heresies and high wave prouder than the plumes of grass and sadder than their sigh. And I go riding against the raid, and ye know not where I am, but ye shall know in a day or year, when one green star of grass grows here, chaos has charged you, charger and spear, battle axe and battering ram. And though skies alter and empires melt, this word shall still be true. If we would have the horse of old, scour ye the horse anew. One time I followed a dancing star that seemed to sing and nod and ring upon the earth all evil's knell. But now I wot, if ye scour not well, red rust shall grow on God's great bell, and grass in the streets of God. Ceased Alfred, and above his head the grand green domes, the downs, showed the first legions of the press, marching in haste and bitterness, for Christ's sake and the crowns. Beyond the cavern of Colon, past Eldred's by the sea, rose men that owned King Alfred's rod, from the windy wastes of Exe untrod, or where the thorn of the grave of God burns over Glastonbury. But dark and thick as thronged the host, with drum and torch and blade, the still-eyed king sat pondering, as one that watches a live thing, the scoured chalk. And he said, though I give this land to Our Lady, that helped me in Athelney, though lordlier trees and lustier sod and happier hills hath no flesh trod than the garden of the Mother of God between Thames side and the sea, I know that weeds shall grow in it faster than men can burn, and though they scatter now and go, in some far century, sad and slow, I have a vision, and I know the heathen shall return. They shall not come with warships, they shall not waste with brands, but books be all their eating, and ink be on their hands, not with the humour of hunters, or savage skill in war, but ordering all things with dead words. Strings shall they make of beasts and birds, and wheels of wind and star. They shall come mild as monkish clerks, with many a scroll and pen. And backward shall ye turn and gaze, desiring one of Alfred's days, when pagans still were men. The dear sun, dwarfed of dreadful suns, like fiercer flowers on stalk, earth lost and little like a pea in high heaven's towering forestry. These be the small weeds ye shall see crawl covering the chalk. But though they bridge St. Mary's sea, or steal St. Michael's wing, though they rear marvels over us, greater than great Virgilius wrought for the Roman king, by this sign you shall know them, the breaking of the sword, and man no more a free knight that loves or hates his lord. Yea, this shall be the sign of them, the sign of the dying fire, and man made like a half-wit that knows not of his sire. What though they come with scroll and pen, and grave as a shaven clerk? By this sign you shall know them, that they ruin and make dark, by all men bond to nothing, being slaves without a lord, by one blind idiot world obeyed, too blind to be abhorred, by terror and the cruel tales of curse in bone and kin, by weird and weakness winning, accursed from the beginning, by detail of the sinning and denial of the sin, by thought a crawling ruin, by life a leaping mire, by a broken heart in the breast of the world, and the end of the world's desire, by God and man dishonoured, by death and life made vain. Know ye the old barbarian, the barbarian come again. In what wise men shall smite him, or the cross stand up again, or charity or chivalry, my vision saith not, and I see no more, but now ride doubtfully to the battle of the plain. And the grass edge of the great down was cut clean as a lawn, while the levies thronged from near and far, from the warm woods of the western star, and the king went out to his last war on a tall grey horse at dawn. The gates of the great river were breached as with a barge. The walls sank crowded, say the scribes, and high towers, populous with tribes, seemed leaning from the charge. Smoke like rebellious heathens rolled, curled over coloured flames, mirrored in monstrous purple dreams in the mighty pools of Thames. Loud was the war on London wall, and loud in London gates, and loud the sea kings in the cloud broke through their dreaming gods and loud cried on their dreadful fates. And all the while on White Horse Hill the horse lay long and wan. The turf crawled, and the fungus crept, and the little sorrow, while all men slept, unwrought the work of man. With velvet finger, velvet foot, the fierce soft mosses then crept on the large white common wheel. All folk had striven to strip and peel, and the grass, like a great green witch's wheel, unwound the toils of men. And clover and silent thistle throve, and buds burst silently, with little care for the Thames valley, or what things there might be. That away on the widening river, in the eastern plains for crown, stood up in the pale purple sky one turret of smoke like ivory, and the smoke changed, and the wind went by, and the king took London town.